Welcome to the Chamber Spotlight, a local talk show podcast brought to you by the Pembroke Chamber of Commerce in association with the local scene. We'll be recording on a regular basis and we'll cover many topics that span local businesses, local elections, local town governance, and a citizens' academy. I'm your host, Fraser Townley, and today is March the 2nd, and I'm sitting down with State Senator Dylan Fernandes. Dylan, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How
Excellent.
are you?
Terrific, thank you. Did you dig yourself out?
Dug out, finally. Took longer than I would have liked.
Yeah, it was terrific. What a snowstorm. Broke all records, I hear.
From what I hear, too. I mean, certainly biggest snowstorm, snow event in my lifetime.
Yeah. Although I did meet an old timer the other day, and he said to me, yeah, but they measure it differently. It's not like it was in the old days. So apparently we haven't broken any records. But anyhow, we're going to go to the town news. Nicole Lydek recorded the town headlines earlier today, so we'll shoot over there, and then we'll come back and have a chat. Today is March 2nd, and I'm here at Town Hall with Nicole Lydek, who's going to be reading the headlines. Nicole, why don't you introduce yourself and the department you work for?
Hello, my name is Nicole Lydek. I am the principal clerk for the assessor's office at Town Hall.
Okay, so you're in the assessor's office. What did the assessor's office do?
So the assessor's office are responsible for determining the tax rate for the town based on what happens at town meetings. So any monies that the town decides we want to pay for things like the community center, new public safety buildings, we will assess the town's value and worth so that we can array the best possible tax rate for residents.
Very good. Very good. So the headlines.
So this week, the Community Preservation Committee and the Historic District Commission is meeting Monday, March 2nd. The Town Memorial Committee is meeting on Tuesday, March 3rd. The Select Board will be meeting on Wednesday, March 4th. And the Planning Board will be meeting on Monday, March 9th. Meetings need to be scheduled within 48 hours, so check the section on the town website titled Public Meetings for the latest update. A reminder that a majority of these meetings are broadcast on the local scene. Meetings can be rewatched on www.thelocalscene.media/Pembroke. We'd like to give a huge shout out to our Department of Public Works, Police, and Fire, as well as the subcontractors that were all hands on deck for this historic snowstorm. If you have any remaining concerns regarding the conditions, please leave a message with our DPW at 781-293-5620. When there is inclement weather, please check the website for the latest updates on the trash schedule. If you have any questions, give our trash company, Easy Disposal, a call at 855-898-7274. The community center is back to being open to the public regular hours after operating as the warming center during the snowstorm. They have a plethora of children's and adults programs available for the month. Check out their Facebook page, Pembroke Recreation Department, for more information. As of now, only 51% of the 7,137 households have responded to their annual census. Please return your annual census and remind your neighbors that they need to respond to avoid being listed as inactive on the voter registration rolls. This is the last month to register your dog before late fees are applied. Please register your dog by March 31st to avoid a late fee. As well, nomination papers for the May 2026 local election are currently available. Papers can be pulled up until Wednesday, March 25th, and must be returned by March 27th. To date, no one has pulled papers for the 2 open planning board seats, nor the open housing authority seat.
That's terrific. Thank you so much, Nicole. And thank you for that shout out for the emergency services and the ploughman and the DPW was it DPW you said? Yeah, yes. DPW for what they did during this historic snowfall. It was very challenging, but they did an amazing job.
They certainly did.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks a lot, Nicole.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so there's the town headlines. Dylan, first of all, thanks so much for coming on. This
pleasure.
Was a trial getting you on here. It snowstormed. I think twice you got snowstormed out from doing this, but you're here now. Let's share your background, not necessarily your bio, but your background, because you're a local guy, right?
Yeah, I'm a local guy. I'm a fourth generation resident of our district. My family came here from the Azores. They settled as strawberry farmers in our district. They, came through Ellis Island to Fall River and then settled here, like a lot of Portuguese Azorean families did. Yeah. And then, my parents are small business owners. My mother is a local artist in our community, and my father owns and just sold a landscaping company that he started when he was really young.
We had Ken Sweezy on earlier. Obviously, you know who Ken is. I think his father was the same. He got his chops digging post holes for his father. Yeah.
Well, then he knows I wasn't digging holes. I was dragging brush. So equally, yes. There's no child labor laws when your parents own small businesses.
Absolutely not.
And so, I don't know what age I was, probably 11, 12, was dragging brush, picking up logs, and bringing them to the chipper. I was not allowed to go near the wood chipper because there was some safety protocols, and my dad was wanted to keep me safe. But that being said, I spent a lot of time dragging brush, and and I guess that's why it's not General Tree Care and Son, and I went my own way. But it was it's a formative experience, and it's good to start work at a young age, and starting from then to when I was legally able to work, never, didn't have a job.
Yeah. And you know what? That's something I've taken immediately from this conversation. You come from a hardworking background. It's not like you're silver spooned or gifted, or you might be gifted, but you worked hard.
Yeah. And I come from a very hardworking family. My father was one of 9. They grew up in really extreme poverty in our district. My grandmother used to pour out bath water once a day for all 9 kids to bathe in, like really profound poverty that I myself didn't experience. I grew up middle class, but I did so because, my father dropped out of high school, started a small business, worked to see it grow, and in the American dream, worked his way out of poverty and was able to provide for me in ways that he was never provided for. And so that's a large part of why I got involved in public service, is because I wanted to give back to families like mine that are struggling here in our community, and there's a lot. And I also want to give back to the community and country and Commonwealth that has given me so much and that I love and am proud to be a part of.
So let me just ask you a question. Did you sense the poverty that you just described when growing up?
No, I didn't.
Great.
And that's because I didn't grow up in that poverty. I grew up like a solidly middle class existence. There were some things that we couldn't afford. Like we didn't, like big ski weekends, right? Were not something my family was ever doing that, some other families were, but I never, my family also never had trouble paying for like my hockey gear, right? That's quite an expensive sport. So, we were somewhere right in the middle there. But was really proud of my father and his siblings for working they're really hardworking Azorean people, and they worked their way into the middle class, many of them, to provide a better life for their kids, and I'm a beneficiary of that hard work.
As you say, the American dream.
That's right.
So Okay, that's a bio. That's some background. Tell me about the. So you're a state senator. Did you have any other public offices before then?
I was a state representative for several years before then. I represented Martha's Vineyard in Nantucket and this island chain called Gosnold, which has Cuttyhunk on it, our smallest...
Cuttyhunk.
Let's
pronounce that correct.
It's our smallest community in the Commonwealth. I will say, and I don't mean to brag here, but I did win it with 3 votes for me and then 2 for my opponent. So it was a big win for me to
60%.
carry. That's right.
That's a landslide.
That's right. And, as Cuttyhunk goes, so does the Commonwealth, as everyone knows and says. So it was quite a fascinating district, and then Falmouth on the Cape side was part of that district as well. So a really unique area with very kind of profound affordability issues, as you can imagine. And so this topic of I've been pushing on this topic of affordability. Basically, since I ran on that when I first ran for state rep the first time. Because where I grew up is profoundly unaffordable and has been for years, and now sadly, our push for addressing that is now being, felt by everyone, because those issues that were really profound in that area for a long time have spread out to the South Shore and beyond. Really, a countrywide issue at this point. But that's always been the heart of what's driven me in my public office career, is to make our district, our region, more affordable for those working class people that I come from. So what do you put it down? I mean, it's very seasonal in Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard and Hyannis from an opportunity point of view, right? Yeah, it is very seasonal. I mean, it's really fascinating community because for 2 months out of the year, some of these communities are the wealthiest places on the planet, right? Yeah. But then the other 10 months, it's below average for everything else, actually below median wages, but still really expensive in terms of price of goods and services. So you had this kind of really tough combination of items where it's a really expensive place, but actually from an economic perspective for year-rounders, actually tougher than a lot of other places in the state and in the state median. So some big affordability challenges there. And, you feel that right here in the heart of the Plymouth and Barnstable district that I currently represent, around housing costs, energy costs, childcare costs, and the like, that really, we need to address if we want to make our communities more sustainable place to raise a family. Yeah. I actually have some very specific questions on that, which I'll come on to we'll deal
later.
With it whenever.
Well, no, it feels like a good segue, but I don't want to spoil the flow. I want to continue talking about basics. So you are a state senator. What's the difference between a state senator and a House representative?
The main difference is the numbers, and so that's in two regards. One is there's 40 state senators.
Sure.
There's 160 state representatives.
Yeah.
And so senators, we have proportional representation in the Commonwealth. We're legally we didn't always, but we're legally obligated to from some of the 1960s Civil Rights Act legislation that is at the federal level. So it's a proportional representation, a state rep district, around 45-ish thousand people, state senate district, around 170,000 people. And so just from representing constituents-wise, it's fourfold, four times larger. And then numbers-wise in the legislature, it's a smaller body. And so that to me is really nice. And I've been on the House side too, just because you have a lot more say in the room for how decisions are made. And this is true of any organization, right? Any large organization, there's going to be more concentrated power at the top, and any smaller organization, the power is going to be a little more diffuse. And so that's what I really enjoy about the Senate side is, ultimately I do this work because I want to make an impact and hopefully improve people's lives. And you just have more say and ability to do that on the Senate side compared to the House side. Not to say you can't do that in the House. It's just the numbers bear out that you have more say and ability on the Senate side.
But does it work similar to the federal government where the House get bills and then they pass them up to the Senate for final, or you're not working independently from the House, right?
No. So every bill has to go through both chambers.
Right.
Money bills appropriation bills have to start in the House. So the House will take up the budget first, for example, and then we'll take up the House's version of the budget. A month after that, House takes up in April. We take it up in May. Any bill that has a big financial component to it usually starts on the House side and then comes to the Senate. But for the other bills, and there's 7,000 bills filed every session, quite a lot to get through in a 2-year period. Those bills can start in either chamber.
So it's actually 14,000 in a 2-year period. If it's 7,000 a year.
No, sorry,
7,000
I should say 7,000 a session.
Got it. That was my mistake.
And so that's quite a lot to get through. Most of them can start in either body. And you see that right now where the House has passed some pieces of legislation. The Senate has passed different pieces of legislation. The Senate and House will then go take up their versions of what the other chamber passed. Usually those versions are slightly different. And so then a conference committee is appointed if they're different, of 3 members from the House, 3 members from the Senate. That group gets together in a room, hashes out those differences, and then that final bill comes to the floor as a final yes or no vote. You can't amend that final version.
Yeah.
And then that goes to the governor. Governor can either sign partially, veto part of it, or veto the whole thing.
Right. Do you feel it's an efficient use of time, having it go twice through the system? Or is that just...
It has to, because it doesn't have to, right?
Okay.
The only reason it would have to is if the versions of the bills are very different from each other.
Right.
So if we pass the exact same version, they're probably not going to appoint a conference committee.
Right.
That is then going to, come up with, these different bills that have to, when it comes up with a new version of a compromise bill that has to get voted on. Instead, and you see this there's a lot of bills, hundreds, probably like low thousands bills of small, non-controversial items that once you pass it through a body, the other chamber takes it up, doesn't change it at all. They both then pass it to engross it, or they literally will, there's a floor where in the Senate or the legislature, will literally just will engross the document. Mm-hmm. And then, that then goes to the governor. And that's the local home rule thing. It's called a home rule petition, or very non-controversial bills. Those move through that process, and it doesn't even require a vote of the whole legislature.
Right.
So those can be passed in informal session. That is a more efficient process. When things slow down, it's for those really kind of meaty policy bills that people are going to have disagreements over and differences of opinion on. And, one of my biggest sources of frustration is how slow the process can be. And especially at a time when, I view a lot of people's needs aren't being fully met by the government. I think we have a lot of work to do there. I think there's things we can be proud of, but that slow process is inherent to the legislative process. Now, that is also by design, right? Because we're setting policy for 7+ million people. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to change a law that impacts 7 million people, you want to have it right. You can always revisit it, of course, but you want to have your first draft pass version. You want to have that be a pretty good, pretty well vetted version, because if you're impacting that many people's lives, you don't want to be making big mistakes. And so that's the kind of the push and pull and trade-off for time management when it comes to passing legislation.
Do you think 2 years is long enough?
I think, for the Senate side, no, I really don't. The funny thing is, most people don't think I served 2 years. Most people think that the Massachusetts Senate, we get 6 years like the U.S. Senate, or 4 years like the governor gets. It's
not long enough.
It's not long enough. I think that is a big efficiency issue, to be honest with you. I'm not going to change it. This is a constitutional thing. It would have to go to the,
I understand.
We would have to vote on it, but really it'd have to go to the voters to decide. I like that, I think that there should, I wouldn't do 6 years. I think it's good to be heavily responsive to the voters. The challenge with a 2-year cycle, at least on the Senate side, and that's what the House, federally is designed to, right? That's 2-year terms, highly responsive. The Senate, U.S. Senate, 6 years, supposed to be, longer term, more deliberative, more forward thinking. We can talk at length at a different podcast about how kind of dysfunctional that the U.S. Congress is. But for, for the state model, I really think, 3 or 4 years makes a lot of sense, in part because, this constant campaigning does make you use your time a little less efficiently in terms of maximizing time spent on constituent, issues and big long-term issues that impact the region. I think it's really important that the government thinks long-term. And so when you get into this really short cycle, I think there's some impediments to that. The other piece that's interesting is, every 2 years is a restart of the legislative cycle. So that's 7,000 bills. You have to refile them, 2 years later. So if you had just a slightly, just let's say a 3-year term, right? Which I think, would make a lot of sense. You can carry forward some of these bills over a longer period. And so you're not constantly resetting the legislative cycle. But look, this is a bit of a fever dream. I don't think it's going to pass for a long time. And
okay, let me just ask you then, of the 7,000 bills, how many of them are a reset of ones that didn't get finalized in a previous session?
Typically, I don't know the exact percentage, but typically it takes a piece of legislation somewhere between 6 to 8 years to become law, right? So there's probably a lot of resets there. There's a lot of legislation responding to current events or current issues. Some bills you can get passed, in a couple of weeks if it's responding to some event that has popped up. So it really kind of depends on there is, and this is interesting because when I first got into the legislature, there's no one gives you a playbook as to how it works, right? Yeah. And there really is no playbook to how it works. And so my model was, and still is, because it's been effective, is let's just try everything. Let's try organizing groups outside the building. Let's try, doing inside the building work, meeting with colleagues and chairs and insider experts. Let's, try, PR campaigns around certain things. And I've gotten, a lot of legislation passed, 30 plus bills at this point. And there is no, do A plus B plus C, and then you'll get your bill passed. We've had bills passed through all different sorts of ways. So my office rule is really like, let's just get caught trying. Let's just get caught doing like all the work we can, right?
Yeah.
And seeing what sticks, and then as something sticks, let's pursue that avenue and for that particular piece of legislation to see if we can get it passed. But just try everything, see what sticks, and
So
push
you've
forward.
had 30 bills from start to finish.
Yeah. Oh, signed into law. Yeah, we're over that now, but
Wow. Good for you.
yeah,
somewhere over there. You've just spent 10 minutes telling me how impossible it is, and you managed to get 30 done. That's great.
Yeah. Well, we work really hard. I mean, that's
That wasn't a put down. That was a compliment.
It is. It's hard to get bills passed. It's hard to get amendments passed. Just this past year, we passed over 40 plus, amendments, which are separate than bills. But it's the same in that it is a piece of law that, we file and then gets.
Is that in the 7,000 count, or is that on top of?
That's separate. Yeah.
Wow.
So amendments, that's an interest. There are many more. I would suspect there are actually many more amendments filed. There are many more amendments filed than actually bills filed in aggregate in the legislature as well. So it doesn't mean, like a bill, it doesn't mean they get passed. Most of them don't get passed. But we've been able to bring in a lot of money to the community through amendments that we're really proud of. But yeah, all of this.
Where's that money coming from?
So it comes from the state budget usually, or from, it comes from the state budget. So
not federal monies. It's
no, because we have no say over that.
Right.
That's all our U.S. senators, our U.S. Congress. But we, for instance, I think my biggest accomplishment that I'm most proud of in my first year serving here, serving Pembroke and Kingston and Plimpton and Plymouth and, the 4 towns on the Upper Cape, is when I first got elected, literally a month into the role, the state said that they were closing the one mental health facility, state-run mental health facility in our district, and the children's hospital in our region. And, they called me, the commissioner called me with the news. And I just told her, I'm not going to let you do this.
No.
And this is
good for you.
This is going to be a fight. And it was. We put up a huge fight and we won, and the biggest amendment I've ever filed and gotten was $34 million to keep our region's state-run mental health facility open and running, and our region's children's hospital, the Pappas Children's Hospital, up and running. And it's just so important that those kids get the care they need and deserve. And our region has some of the most acute mental health issues in the state. Barnstable County actually has the highest suicide rate of any county in the Commonwealth. Plymouth, not far behind. Some really big mental health issues, some co-occurring substance misuse issues. So important to me that we give the people living here who are struggling with them, or family members that are struggling with those issues, the care and support that they need. And not only are stopping the state from taking away those resources, which we've been successful in doing, now we're talking about, how do we expand beds and opportunity for people? Yeah.
And I've heard the substance abuse argument, but that's as a result of other factors, and it's more economic factors. I have a son that lives in Hyannis. He originally went to the Riverview School, which is in Sandwich.
It's a great school. Yeah.
It's an awesome school.
Yeah.
But if you don't have access to that school, what do you do?
Yeah.
And it's not a question for you. It's a rhetorical question. We've seen, we know the community that go to Riverview, and we've seen a much larger community that didn't have access to Riverview. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of the same in the living situation in Hyannis. There's a lot of people moving to Hyannis because of Riverview. I'm not sure if you're aware of that.
Yeah, and Riverview, they just expanded, right? They just bought the new property, the golf course property there.
Correct.
That's a really exciting opportunity for kids and students that age out of Riverview to be able to continue and have a place and community for them to remain at, stay supported, and really have that cohort and friend group that they've been so accustomed to. So it's great. I mean, it's really awesome what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's close to my heart. I also do some work with New England Village, which I know you know about. Yeah. So it's all interlinked. So what you did in your first 30 days was fantastic. 34 million to support, not Riverview in per se, but mental health and children's health. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. And at the end of the day, I'm gonna, these are my friends, right, that I had to fight against, right? And so I don't care, what side of the aisle you're on. I don't care, what your ideology is. At the end of the day, I'm just going to fight for my constituents, fight for my district, and I'll work with anyone who wants to help out.
Yeah.
And anyone who's trying to take away resources, like, don't, regardless of affiliation, I'm also going to fight back against that. So we were fortunate in this instance, the governor actually really listened to the concerns that I raised, and ultimately, signed in the budget and supported us keeping these facilities open, counteracting what the commissioner at the Department of Mental Health was trying to do.
I'm quite sure what they were trying to do. I mean, your arguments are very eloquent. The governor obviously understood it. I can see the need for it. I don't know why anyone would ever propose that.
It's a great question, but I think they're pretty sad that they did, based upon the response that we were able to generate around it, and we ended up winning and being successful there. So that was great, and really the community rallied behind us, had our support. Community groups, community organizations, the unions. So it was really a team effort at the end of the day, and that's true of almost all of this stuff. Is I get to kind of take credit for some of these things.
I'm giving it to you,
and that's that's being I think politicians too often take credit for things that they don't do without recognizing the fact that. Yes, we were able to file the legislation to get it passed and signed into law, but we were backed by, thousands of people on the ground who are supportive. And, without that too, I think it would make it a lot harder for us to do what we did.
Yeah. So we've actually, that drifted nicely. I'm not quite sure I got the complete story out that I was looking for. Oh, so 2 years. It started with, is 2 years long enough? I don't think it's long enough. It absolutely is. You just getting started. And like you said, you got to start campaigning again.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's long enough. I also, and this is not an opinion of the Chamber of Commerce, this is my personal opinion, I don't think folks at the state level get paid enough either. You are never going to get a top cadre executive stepping away from that to go and work for the government on the salaries that are being paid. And you don't need to comment on that. I'm just sharing my opinion. You could invest quite small money by improving the salaries of the representatives and the senators and get a cadre of person that is really make this state rock. Mm-hmm. Just an opinion.
Yeah, look, I appreciate that. I think I'm comfortable personally with what I make, but there is a choice, right? Like, there is a choice, and there are some legislatures that are just run by retirees and people who are independently wealthy, and that's because they're not compensated, some almost at all. And so, that's the trade-off you're getting. Like, do you want to have a representative body or not, right? Mm-hmm. And if you have the incentives in place for it just to be, retirees and independently wealthy people,
That's all you're going to get.
That's what you're going to get,
Yep.
and you're going to get policies that reflect that. But I'm actually very comfortable with what I'm very happy and comfortable with what I personally make from the state. And so
No, and
I'm
I
not
understand
trying
that.
to change
I'm not
yeah.
trying to put anyone
Yeah.
on the spot here, but you and the likes of Ken Sweezy, you're at the beginning of your careers. So this is a good starter salary for the beginning of your year. But somebody in their 50s or 60s who's earning twice, 3 times, they're not going to step away and say, you know what, I think I'm going to go back. I'm going to step backwards.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, it'd be, the incentives aren't there. And, like anything else, incentives are what drives a lot of people. And really, at the end of the day, I think it's important that we have a legislature that reflects the makeup of our society. I think that's what anyone would want in a democratic society. And so, how does any legislature try to encourage that? And there are many ways to do that. And so I'm just supportive of having a legislature that looks like us and is represented by us and by working people.
Absolutely. I didn't mean to put you on the spot there.
Oh, it's okay.
I'm going to cross that off my list. So look, we've got a couple of issues that are hitting Pembroke in particular. And I just wanted to share or get your opinion as well, because it's also, I think, some of the stuff that I want to talk about does impact other towns that you represent. One of them that's a real hot topic in Pembroke at the moment is BESS, the battery energy storage. So it got stopped in Duxbury, and there's a group trying to stop it happening in Pembroke. What's your opinion on this?
I can talk to you generally about battery storage and what it means. I don't know the ins and outs of the proposal before the town.
Okay.
I think you'd have to, as a community, take a look at what it means for your property taxes, right? I mean, a lot of communities are going through having these issues where they haven't done enough to encourage commercial property in their communities. And so, that means that if you're going through a budget issue, it goes right on the backs of all the residents. And you're seeing that right now in towns across the South Shore. And so I think, you'd have to take a look into the details on how much this would benefit the community in terms of, a good community benefit agreement or how it would generate revenue for the town so that it's not all being borne by, the residents. I think that's really important.
So one of the pushbacks I've given is, it's my opinion, a lot of this has occurred because the state have put in regulations for renewable energy that have allowed people to get certain benefits for having the battery farms, particularly in residential areas. And in truth, what's happening is these companies are buying low-cost energy off the grid, off-peak energy, and then putting it back into the grid at the higher rate. They're not actually connected to solar. They're not connected with wind. And this is not the feelings of the Chamber of Commerce, but I personally think the state should be looking at all of this and saying, well, hold on a second. Why aren't the utility companies doing that? If there's enough fat in the price that they can sell cheap and buy back at a higher price that can afford somebody putting in the capital expenditure of the battery farms, the rent of that space, why isn't the state forcing the utility companies just to put the battery farms in their own backyard and give the savings to the consumer?
Right. So there's a lot to unpack there.
Sorry about that.
So there's 2 issues. The 2 most complicated issues are healthcare.
Yep.
Healthcare policy and energy policy. So there's just like a lot to unpack around that, and I'm happy to do my best shot on this. So, and we have a lot of like energy is the issue that I am involved in quite a bit and have been for some time. We have a lot of affordability legislation that we filed and are hopeful will pass this session to really lower costs. So like just to back up here, we don't have a state-run energy market.
No.
So in the 1990s, there was deregulation federally. Some states decided to deregulate. Massachusetts was one of them. Other states decided to keep their utilities public. Interestingly enough, a lot of the southern Midwestern states kept their utilities they're public. And so we went the private direction. I have some thoughts on that. If you look at, in the aggregate, what has happened, since the 90s, the places with public, they kept their utilities public. A lot of these southern states actually have, per capita on average, other variables held equal, have had slightly lower energy costs than the places that privatize. So we have language, legislative language around a commission to take a look at, does this make sense? Like just to reevaluate, like, hey, does this make sense? Were those choices right for us to privatize? Does it make sense for us to be paying for these utilities that also pay their CEOs millions and millions of dollars? Let's just take a look at that. Maybe that's the right model, right? But let's take a look at that. Let's reevaluate it. That's a whole different, that's a different discussion. But I think one long-term lookout worth taking a look for energy prices. Electricity is purchased, by ISO New England on a competitive energy market, and so that's done. They forecast it for every single hour the day before. So ISO New England. So the energy generators will say, we can give you this rate at this hour on, tomorrow. And then the utility companies say, this is our anticipated demand. And so then they come together on this energy market run by ISO New England. One cool thing about this, you can look at it on your phone right now, and it'll show you exactly what energy is being deployed onto our energy grid, the ISO New England grid, which is the New England States grid, like what the cost is, where it's coming from, and you can look minute to minute. Yeah. And they adjust actually minute to minute. I think it's every 5 minutes they actually adjust price. So that's kind of how, that's a very loose version of how our energy market works. There are also capacity markets that just wait and are literally paid not to produce energy because they need to be there in case there's a big energy spike to be able to come onto the grid to meet demand so there aren't blackouts. So if you go over the Sagamore Bridge, you look to Sandwich, coming over, look to the left.
There's a power
station.
Sandwich,
big power station.
Yeah.
Hasn't been turned. Well, it might have been turned on in this big storm, but hasn't been turned on in a while. But this is a power station that the grid will call and say, hey, get ready. We think there's going to be a massive demand. Make sure you're ready to go. If they reach that kind of peak demand, then they'll fire up. Once you hit those peak demands, energy is quite expensive. So this is an energy market. It's a private market. Incredibly high demand means high cost. I mean, this is like your basic
high prices, not necessarily high cost.
Well, there you go. I mean, your econ 101, right? And so where batteries fit into this is that they buy energy when it's cheap, and then deploy it when it is at a high cost. That actually shaves down the peak price. It's called like peak shaving. So it actually this is by design to lower costs. Like if they're buying energy low and then coming into the market when energy is high, that actually shaves the peak demand of the energy. They save money. Like it's literally that is the purpose of batteries, is to buy energy when it's low and then deploy it when it is high.
Right. So my question is, why aren't the utilities doing that? Why are they farming it out?
Utilities aren't generators. So
Okay.
there's generation and then there's distribution.
Okay.
And we said when we privatized
Yeah.
that distributors of energy, this is this is
great
not the
conversation.
conversation
This is a
you thought you were
podcast.
having. Yeah. Distributors, we said in the 90s, and this is what privatization did, is said that if you're an energy, distributor, which is utility, you can't be a generator.
Mm-hmm.
There's some interesting instances where we've kind of gone in the other direction, and in some narrow cases have actually allowed utilities to be generators, which is again kind of gets back to my original commission idea to, hey, like, what are we doing here? What's the end plan? Because allowing for vertical integration basically is allowing for public, even though it's still owned by private. So it's an interesting thing to look at long term and see what system makes sense for the ratepayers, because at the end of the day, we should be saving them money. So those are two different things. Generators are the ones that generate the energy, whether that is your power plant or your solar farm or what have you.
Sure.
And then distributors are the ones who distribute the energy. And so distributors, are the Eversources, the national grids, and the like. And so they can't charge you any more for the energy supply that you get from the generators than what they pay for it. And so on these bills that you get...
How do they... Wait, sorry. They can't charge more than they're paying.
Yeah, for the supply. So where you see the spikes on some of these bills is through the distribution, right?
Yeah.
So this is where people are saying like, hey, I'm paying, X hundreds of dollars. My energy use wasn't that high, but these distribution costs are crazy. So that is where the utilities are allowed to generate a profit, is on the distribution side.
Got it.
So that's why, those bills are so, when you look at your bill, that it's pretty out of whack, right? It doesn't make a lot of sense. So, how much profit are they allowed to generate? That's something that should be looked at. I think we should absolutely look at, okay, these distribution costs that you're charging, are they actually getting the job done to support grid infrastructure, or are you just, kind of gold plating is a term, like gold plating these projects to try and generate as much money from consumers as possible? I think that needs to, be taken a look at as well. And so we have a couple different kind of big energy idea pieces that I'm interested in reforming to save ratepayers money, which I'd be happy to get into that as well. Because at the end of the day, we will always be paying a little more for our energy because of the climate that we're in, compared to the rest of the country. Because of the climate that we're in, Massachusetts also does not have any fossil fuels, right? Like, we don't have a single... People are like, why aren't we fracking in Massachusetts? Like, well, there's no gas to frack. So we can't,
We're dependent on importing our energy.
Unless it's clean energy. And that's the only form of energy that is, local, built by Massachusetts workers, and is, controlled by people in Massachusetts. Everything else we have to import, and are, subject to, war in Iran and global, like, that's another thing that people get. Energy is a fascinating...
Who knew that was going to come in the conversation, huh? I mean, come on.
Everyone, it's funny. One of my biggest pet peeves is gas prices and the argument around gas prices.
Gas as in petroleum.
Yeah, gas prices and presidents.
Right.
Like, this Democratic president, the prices are spiking under him. We got to get him out. He doesn't understand policy. Or, prices are spiking under this Republican president. It's, what's wrong with him? Like, gas prices are a world private market. So presidents, they're a world market rate.
Sure.
So the U.S., yes, we produce an incredible amount of gas, right?
Yeah, but we also
it's our biggest.
consume
It's our biggest
an
Well, it's actually our biggest export.
Yeah.
by far. And so that's because it's not the gas we produce here is part of a global market. And so Democrat or Republican president, they are, it's incredibly marginal and small if they could have any impact at all on, for instance, the price of gas, because it is a global world price that they're,
of course,
and so I've always found that to be an interesting political discussion where both sides can get mad about that sticker price you see, even though that one president, no matter what party they are, actually has almost no say over it. But energy policies, it's fascinating. It's something that I really care about. There's two pieces of policy that I want to raise without getting too much in the weeds because they save people money. Mm-hmm. One is it's called an alternative compliance payment method. It's a fee that the utilities pay if they're not hitting their kind of clean energy goals. That went and sat in a pot for clean energy, projects or what have you. I have legislation to take that and give that back to consumers, to give that back to you, the people listening to this, ratepayers. That to me is the right thing to do, and small businesses too. We want to find a way to get it back to both. So giving people more money back on their utilities. The other piece that sets us apart from any other state is this thing called remuneration, which is literally a fee that the utilities charge for some types of projects. So just for this Hydro-Quebec project that came down giving us power from Quebec, they've charged around like a little under $400 million for this. And this was approved under the previous administration, Baker administration. These remuneration fees are nothing but a payout by you and me to the utility companies for getting power that they're obligated to already get. They serve no purpose other than that. And we're actually the only state in the country that has some of these remuneration fees. So
and
that has to go.
Where are the fees going?
It goes directly to the utility, right? So utility,
but if it's
not
in Quebec, it's a Canadian utility?
No. So that's, again, difference between a generator and a distributor. So utilities, distributors goes to Eversource, NatGrid, and the other kind of smaller actors. That to me is wrong, mm-hmm. incredibly frustrating, and a big part, part of why energy prices are higher than they need to be here.
So my argument about batteries actually struck a chord in the sense that you and I seem to be agreeing that we're overpaying and we need to get some money back. Forget the batteries. That's a red herring. There's a lot more going on, it sounds like.
Oh, there's a lot more going on. I mean, but batteries play a component in the purpose of the batteries. And again, I don't know the fine details of this, this project, but the purpose of batteries is buying energy low mm-hmm. and then bringing it onto the grid when energy is high so that you're shaving that peak demand down to actually lower energy prices as part of a competitive market.
I had a knee jerk that said if there's that much juice in the margin, then they're making too much money to start with. You've taken that to a completely different level, talking about how much money they're making and how wrong that is. So I'm good. We're on the same page.
Yeah. Well, it would seem.
We'll, good. We're 50 minutes into a 30-minute podcast. And there are so many things I wanted to talk to you about. We touched a little bit about the housing. You sponsored a transportation bill, high-end transportation bill. Is that correct? What was that about?
We have a couple of transportation bills. This one, we have one.
Sorry to jump around, but
we have one to bring, which I'm excited about, to bring commuter rail to Buzzards Bay. And so this is a really important bill to expand transportation access to really kind of the heart of our district in Bourne. Mm-hmm. And this would go, with South Coast Rail coming online for the first time, which brings commuter rail from New Bedford and Fall River to Boston. We advocated for them to go the Middleborough route they were looking at Stoughton too, but Middleborough, now they've gone Middleborough, it connects directly to the Buzzards Bay station, which is on, our side of the canal that we're on right now.
Onset, Wareham, that sort of.
Yeah, right in that area. And so, what they could do now is just have a feeder train that goes from Buzzards Bay to Middleborough to meet up with the South Coast passenger rail, hop on and go up to Boston. So we'd essentially expand, commuter access to a lot of people. Yes, in Bourne and Wareham and the Cape, but also a whole lot of people in South Plymouth as well. And so I think it's something we're really pushing, and we've got some good momentum around. It's got reported favorably at a committee. I got a little funding passed for it to take a look at how much it'll cost to have happen. The good news here is the track, which is by far the most expensive part of any type of rail project, is actually upgraded and ready to go for commuter rail access. It's just, how do we upgrade the platforms and the signals to make it happen?
So I'm going to show my ignorance. Is that MBTA?
It is, yeah.
All right, okay.
Yeah, it's MBTA. And Bourne, by the way, is actually an MBTA community. They've been paying into this for years and years and years in hopes to one day get this, this commuter rail access. And so, they've been paying into this.
Yeah.
And it's beyond time for them to be able to have the benefits that come from it.
So we have had some pushback here about the MBTA Commuter Act, not forcing, but encouraging towns to have more affordable housing and so on and so forth. There has been pushback here. I understand from Representative Lenatra I'm not going to say what her object. I'm not going to put words into anybody's mouth. What's your view?
Well, every community that I represent is actually fully compliant with the state, and I think there's, I forget what the exact number is, but there's something like 150 MBTA communities, right? I think only like 6 maybe are non-compliant. So. In terms of compliance,
Pembroke is compliant.
Every community that I represent, is compliant, and really hasn't. I haven't really gotten much outreach on it, to be honest with you. I think I think like anything, there's trade-offs, right?
Yeah.
And so everything needs to have some balance, but it's tough. On the one hand, people are apprehensive about change, and on the other hand, we do need some methods to increase housing to make our communities
progress
a lot more livable, because it's the biggest issue that I hear about is people dealing with lack of affordable housing. So there's a trade-off there. And every
by
community
affordable
that I have
housing,
is compliant.
Can I just be clear? When I say affordable housing, I'm talking about housing that we can afford.
Yeah.
Not housing that falls into an affordable housing 40B bucket.
Capital A versus...
Right, okay.
Yeah. Housing for working people, attainable housing, whatever you want to call it. And it means vastly different things in different places. So, it's interesting. In the Cape side of my district, they're looking for... the average median income to qualify for affordable, for it to go up. They want it to be at, they want to be at like 150, 200%, even higher in some communities. So people making, almost double the state median salary can be able to qualify. Whereas in this side, because that's how crazy expensive it is, that even, doctors in some communities are having a hard time finding affordable housing on the Cape side. Whereas this side of the bridge is actually looking in some communities trying, how do we lower that AMI, that average median income, to make it so that the people making significantly less than the average can qualify and afford to live there. So that's been an interesting piece, and there's some things we actually need to change there for the South Shore, because right now. A lot of the AMI is actually tied and compared to the same AMI in Boston as a region, and so that needs to be looked at here, and has to be a lot more granular for what fits each community in terms of their population and their need and the like.
The irony is a lot of educators and first responders fall beneath, and they're the people we want to house and have living in our communities.
Yeah, we have a huge missing middle issue right now, where a lot of people make just enough to not qualify for a lot of the really important things that we need, and that's one of the biggest challenges our state needs to address. So, we've done a ton for childcare. We've, in terms of, greatest increase percentage-wise for budget spending, I think childcare has got to be it, which is really important that we're supporting childcare. So important for families, but really important for workforce issues too, making sure that, women and men are able to join the workforce and stay in it rather than go home, take care of the kids. Really an economic issue. That for a lot of like really low income people, there's some access now that exists because of the massive increase in funding. But for the whole host of middle class families, they're looking at like 30 grand a year in some cases for one kid, completely unattainable on a middle class salary. And so, that's where I think our focus, really needs to be, is how do we make it, accessible for middle class families for a lot of these programs, whether it's housing or childcare.
Yeah, totally agree with you. I'm not going to waste the listeners' time with examples because we've all got them. But off air, I'll tell you a couple.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I'll talk about it now. The voucher for DDS voucher for housing for kids like my son living in Hyannis, you can't be paying more than $1,300 to get that voucher for housing support.
Yeah. Good luck finding a place on the Cape.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's not possible.
It's not, no.
And yet that's where the community resides.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a few of these things that need to change and are outdated. Some of the reimbursement rates too are really outdated, and some, and this is things that we've pushed on. There are some, regions that are all under one policy from the state perspective. So one interesting thing was around child care reimbursement. I forget what district. It might have been like District 5 or District something or other. It included like the whole South Shore, some of the South Coast, and like Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket for the same reimbursement. And those are wildly different communities in terms of income and disparities and the like, but they all had the same state formula. And so that's what I was talking about before, where the state needs to do a better job of getting even more granular, looking at communities to see what rates actually meet the community needs, not just whole regions, because within a region, there's a lot of different communities and disparities between them, differences between them. And the state needs to take that into account. Yeah,
agreed. We're crazy over time, so I'm going to cancel.
It flies. It flies.
We're going to have you back. That's the first thing. Secondly, let me bring it back to. You've got the flood zone bill that you've done. That doesn't affect Pembroke. So I want to bring it back to what does it mean to Pembroke, and where do we sit in your hierarchy of daily life? Yeah.
Well, I love Pembroke. I've been spending a ton of time in the community, and recently it was at the groundbreaking for a couple of public safety buildings with you.
Yep. Yeah. That's right.
That's a really cool part of the community. I love the community center. It's
great?
Incredible.
Yeah.
We do office hours there relatively routinely. And so, really care about the community. It's interesting, it's an interesting community. I co-chair the rural caucus in the legislature, and it's kind of in that balance there. It's kind of could be considered rural, and there are different needs that those communities have. And so one thing we were able to change was how this kind of roads and bridges formula was calculated. So it used to be really population heavy, And us in the rural caucus were really pushing it for it to be focused on actually the road miles within the town.
Yeah.
And so we were able to change a piece of that formula to now account road miles. And so that really helps communities like Pembroke,
Cool.
more rural communities. But
Is
yeah,
that work you did with the Old Colony planning, or is that a separate?
that's separate. It's separate legislation
Okay.
we've been working on for a long time. I was co-chair of the caucus when I was in the House, and then came over and co-chaired on the Senate side too. But it's been a long time coming. Us and really my friends, colleagues out in Western Mass
Yeah.
have been pushing that too, because they're
Yeah,
they're
I
running
can
into different similar issues. Not a lot of population, but a whole lot of roads. And so that that's really important. We've gotten some local funding, of course, as well, that we're proud of, funds for the library and the like. And so we're going to continue to support and really do everything we can. We last year alone, we had over 500 constituent cases resolved. A whole lot of people from Pembroke have reached out to our office for help with getting on unemployment assistance or with health insurance. And so, we like to be really responsive there and help people there. And I've had a lot of success in helping people navigate, a state bureaucracy that can take too much time.
Yeah. Cool. That community centre, by the way, is there any other community you serve that has a facility like that?
That's pretty cool. Falmouth's got something a little similar, but not nearly as good, in that the rec center and the senior center are kind of one. They just rebuilt it. But nothing else. No, that's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool spot.
Yeah, and it does. It is Council of Aging. The I don't know what it's called now. It's not Council of Aging. I know that because I've had them on. But to have it's combined.
Yeah.
So it's serving the whole community.
I think that's great for everyone.
I think Lance Kennedy is doing a great job there.
Every community needs a place to feel like a community. And really, whenever you can have a building like that brings all ages, all walks of life from the community together, I think that really strengthens the cohesiveness of the town.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. All right. Let's not keep you any longer. Let's not keep the listeners any longer. But vision. What's your vision?
Well, I want to make our district a more affordable, vibrant place to live. We have a number of bills that get at that around housing, around energy. And it's really important to me that our district, Pembroke, has a voice.
Yeah.
For too often, I think our region, South Shore in particular, has been overlooked at the State House and hasn't gotten the resources and respect that it deserves there. And so a big part of, my goal is to really deliver for the region and get the resources, get the support from the state that Pembroke and the other towns that I represent on the South Shore need and deserve.
Terrific. And so, because we're wrapping up, and because we've had this on the docket, how many, like I said, I think this is the third attempt at this podcast.
Massachusetts winner.
Was there anything that you're about to start campaigning as well. So was there anything that is that right? Have I got that right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not till
I'm
November.
not suggesting this is a campaign.
Yeah,
but
it's not till November, but sadly, I will start campaigning.
Is there anything you want the Pembroke residents and Pembroke businesses to know that you didn't get the opportunity to say because we were talking about something else? Is there?
Yeah, I want people to know, and it's really important to me that people know that we're accessible, and we're not some far away office. Our office is right down the street from where we're recording here in Plymouth at Cordage Park. We're here, we're from this community. We're so accessible. Give me a call. Shoot me an email. My cell phone's 508-257-1174. Text me if you'd like. We want to help people with whatever issues that they're facing. And, I do that. More importantly, we have a team that makes me look good too. And endlessly grateful for my staff support. But we're all, at the end of the day, we're driven by wanting to deliver and support the people, deliver for and support the people that we represent.
Yeah. I can care about your team, by the way. I mean, during the storm, they were texting me and communicating with me. They were fantastic.
Yeah.
And so that's great. And very brave of you to put your telephone number out there, but
give me a text.
Listen, this is, my experience of working with you is you are, as you've just described. And I think that's great. And I think Pembroke and Massachusetts need more people like you.
I appreciate that.
And so with that, I'm going to thank you for participating and also thank our listeners for tuning in. This podcast will be available on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, with additional links to our Facebook page. Don't forget to like us on Facebook at the Pembroke Chamber of Commerce. And if you're interested in becoming a member of the Chamber, please go to the Pembroke Chamber of Commerce website, pembrokechamber.org. Dylan Fernandes, this has not been long enough, but I really appreciate your time today. Thank you so much.
Me too. Well, thank you. And let's do it again soon.
Okay. I'll hold you to that.